So how's it going, your first camp as a coach?
So far, so good. I mean, it's one of the days is not tough on the coaches. It's not really tough on the players yet. So, so far, so good. Can't complain about it.
Anything surprising about the job that you didn't know, or?
Nope. Nope. 7 years removed. I prepared myself for the worst, and it hasn't got to that point yet. But I'm ready for the long days when the season starts.
I haven't seen you really extremely vocal out there. Is that your style, or are you just easing your way into it?
Well, I don't think I need to scream and holler. I think every coach has their own style. At the end of the day, the train's leaving. It's going to leave with the guys or without the guys. And I think my style is, if you want to get a paycheck, be on the train. I don't need to tell you that. At the end of the day, if you're not doing your job, you're going to get cut. And that's the bottom line. That's the reality of it. I've been. Throughout my career, my coaches never really yelled at me too much, and I was a player that didn't really respond to yelling. There's some guys you need to push, and I think there's ways you find to push certain players, and other guys you just tell them what to do and they'll do it. I think you have to find your way.
Which coaches are you kind of borrowing, or that you've enjoyed playing for, that you kind of?
Gosh, all of them. Chuck Knoll, Rod Rust, Tony Dungy, Dick LeBeau, Dom Capers, Bill Cowher, Steve Mariucci. Johnny Fox, he was a rookie coach when John was in Pittsburgh, but all those guys who I coached under, I've learned a little bit of something from them all.
Did you get a chance to watch all of the Hall of Fame speeches, and what was it like when you?
Oh yeah. From yours,
what was it like to watch?
Well, they're getting longer. That's what it feels like. They're getting longer, but anytime you can go back and see the great classes that come back. I think it was like 80-some guys that come back this year. That went back. It's always good to go back and see those guys and see the guys that get enshrined that year.
Coach, what do you think about Van Dyke so far? What does he need to work on?
Well, I think DVD is his nickname. I think he's going to be good. I think it's the little things that he has to work on. He has to learn how to finish. He's still learning the little things about playing corner in this league, playing the different coverages, when to do certain things, when not to do certain things. But if he keeps progressing in a positive manner like he has in the first week or so, I think he'll be a decent player.
When you first saw him in Miami, what were your first impressions? I think you said you liked his hips, I guess. That was
he has great hips. He reminds me of a player that I played with in Baltimore, Dwayne Starks. When he got drafted coming out of the U, and he was in Baltimore, he had great hips, great feet, and DVD reminds me of him. A little bit taller. And I think that his range, I don't think too many receivers are out running, so he has to learn how to break down and move his body weight and transition when he's playing in space. If he does that, I think he can be a really good player.
Coach, what are your impressions of Michael Huff early on?
Mike's a player. He's a playmaker. He has a natural instinct, a natural gift. I'm also coaching the nickels, and I coach more with the other guys than I do with him. When you don't have to coach as much with a certain guy, it makes your job a little easier. But then that's when you know he has that natural gift. You don't have to tell him to do the little things. It just comes natural to him.
There's a lot of young defensive backs on this team. Does your Hall of Fame status give you the instant credibility with these guys? Does it help?
It starts to start. But if I tell them to go the wrong way, it's not going to last too long. I'm just trying to point them in the right direction. Each player is different. Every player learns differently. Some players are audio learners. Some guys are visual. Some guys need to do the reps. The things that I did in my career, I can't ask the same guy to do the same thing. It really depends on their abilities. And I think each player plays within that ability. If they can do that, and I can help them, cultivate their tool belt, so to speak, in their craft, then I'm doing my job as a coach.
I see you switch a lot between cover 2 and cover 3 today. What does Bresnahan prefer, do you think?
Multiple. I think the great defenses, I know at least that I played with, and I know that Chuck has been around, has done a multiple of things. I don't think you can do one thing and be good at it. I think what has to happen in this league is that you got to make the quarterback think after he touches the football. And I think Chuck, what he's trying to cultivate with his defense is to give multiple looks, make sure we have our disguises in the secondary and the linebackers, and from that we move to what we're going to play in. And if we can do that, then we're heading in the right direction. But I think Chuck, what he wants to do is give multiple looks, multiple defenses, and make the quarterbacks guess.
What have been your impressions of Stanford over 10 days? I mean, the team made a conscious decision in the offseason that they were going to go get him and bring him back.
and Nnamdi was able to get away. Does Stanford, do you look like an elite cornerback in this league?
I think he can be. I think, Stanford, he's a work in progress. He has natural gifts. I think every player that gets drafted in the National Football League has those gifts. And I think he has to cultivate those gifts. And I think that, he's had Willie here for so long. He has learned under, Nnamdi. I think it's his turn to learn how to play the game and learn for himself to trust himself. I think the elite players learn to trust themselves on the field. And then once he does that and he pulls a trigger when he has opportunities to pull a trigger, I think his game is going to elevate. I think his interceptions are going to go up. I think that's when you're going to start hearing his name more so than he had in the past.
You think just pulling the trigger once and getting one play in starts the process, or is it more than that?
Everything's a process. It's step by step, and I think what Stanford has done so far in this new system, he's learning a system, he's learning how to trust himself, he's learning how to work his eyes, his balance with his feet. All the things that you need to do as a defensive back, as a defensive player, as an NFL player, is to trust what you have learned in the meeting room, on the field, and apply it back to the practice field and the game day. Those are the elite players, and I think he's in that progress of doing so.
Cornerbacks for years have joked about the amount of man-to-man they play. We're 90% or whatever they say.
Right.
Is that one? Do you think that's been a little overstated? And two, you're talking about the new system and stuff. Will there be less man here than in the past? Will we see more different things?
Well, I know when I was here, we played multiple coverages. We played 4, we played man, we played some zones. And I think that's what we're going to do again. I don't know what they did in, the 7 or 8 years that I was gone, but that doesn't matter. What matters is this year, 2011 Raiders, the guys buy into what Hugh was selling. I think all the guys are doing that. I think we're learning that there's a standard that we're asking of our players when they step on the practice field. There's a standard for when we step on game day. And it doesn't matter if it's the first team guy, the second team guy, the third team guy, the standard is set. And you have to live up to the standard or you won't be a Raider.
What about on the other side, Chris Johnson? What does he do well? What does he have to work on?
I think Chris can play. I like Chris. He's an old, wily vet. And I think he's kind of the same way as Stanford a little bit. He has to start trusting himself and start pulling that trigger. All the film study, everything that we're giving him as coaches, everything he's learned throughout his career and from other players, once he can apply that back to the field and not hesitate, those are the guys that you really look forward to see play. And I think CJ is in that progress. I think, he believes that he can do certain things. And as he progresses this year, I think he's going to have a good year.
With both those guys pulling the trigger, is that part of Nnamdi not being here? They have to kind of step up and fill that void a little bit? Or?
Well, even with Nnamdi, if Nnamdi was here, I would tell Nnamdi the same thing. He didn't have a lot of picks. He was a shutdown corner, but pulling the trigger gives you opportunity to make picks. And they have to start pulling that trigger. There's certain things that throughout the practice, there's certain plays. You only get 2 or 3 plays as the defensive back to make plays. And once they start learning how to pull that trigger, and I'm talking about the safeties, the DBs, the linebackers, the defensive linemen, everybody. Once we start learning how to pull that trigger, we'll be an explosive defense.
One more.
Coaching, always something you want to do or something you decided recently to try? Or your plans?
Yeah, I've thought about it for years, but after playing 17 years, I was offered my first 2 years when I first retired, and I need to get away. So being away for 7 years, I thought this was the best time to give it a shot and see if I like it, see if I don't mess the guys up too much, and if I can do that, then I'll try to make a career of it.